Now I'm going to put my daylight system in. Now your daylight system is a system that's going to put a sun and a sky in here, and it's going to mimic traditional what we're used to out in the nature. So we're going to go over here to create menu, then you're going to go over here to systems, and then you want the one called daylight, not sunlight, but daylight. Okay, now when you put it in, it's going to ask you, do you want a photographic exposure? And we're going to say yes, we want a photographic exposure. Now I'm going to click in the center and hold down and drag, and it's going to put a little star out here to let you know which way the sun is facing. It doesn't matter how big this little gizmo is. It doesn't affect anything. It just tells you which way the sun is facing. Now when I let up on the mouse, now I have a hold of the sun, okay, and I'm placing the sun. Now it doesn't matter where we place it right now because we're going to move it. So just click and then right click to stop, and now the sun is placed. Now by default, when we're doing the sun, it has a system which allows us to come in right here and click setup, and then we can get location. And now we can actually come in here and tell it, oh, we want to be in San Diego. And then it'll set it up so that we're at San Diego, and we can tell it what time of day and what month of the year, and it'll move everything to be perfect to what the reality is. I'm not going to do that, but it does have that ability to, so, I mean, you know, maybe we're vacationing in Hawaii, so we go in here and pick Hawaii, and we want the sun to be in Hawaii. But I'm not going to do that. Okay, what I'm going to do is to come in here and right here in a position, instead of doing it that way, we're going to click manual, and that way we can grab the sun and we can move it manually wherever we want. And I'm going to want the sun to be over here on the left-hand side coming through these windows so that we have light coming through these windows like so. Okay, so we cast some nice graphics down as the light comes to these windows. Now, the other things that you need to do is you need to make sure that you change your standard. This is the light itself to mental ray sun, and you change your sky to a mental ray sky, and then it's going to ask you to put a mental ray physical sky environment map in, and we want to do that, and I'll explain that in the next video. Okay, so what that actually did was that put us in our environment. It put a physical sky in here. This is like a procedural texture that actually generates a sky that mimics a real sky. So it's putting a blue sky in there for us. Okay, so now if we switch back to our camera view, we'll see that we have this light coming through here. Now we're going to go to our exposure value, and they have presets in here. We're going to want to do this preset. What we're going to want to do is come in here and click this one that says physically placed lighting, outdoor daylight, clear sky. Click that on, and then we're going to want to do a pre-render here so we can kind of see what that lighting is doing while we're in here, and you'll see some light in here. Okay, now it's pretty dark, which is fine. We're going to funnel some light in here, but if I want to do some adjusting in here, I can add, I can start opening up our aperture and letting some more light in there, so I can do that. And I can also come back over here and start adjusting some of the light attributes to the actual lighting system. Now, what's really going on here is this system is actually two pieces. It's a sun and it's a sky. And a lot of people don't realize this. Most people think that when we're, walking around outside, that's all light coming from the sun. Well, it kind of is and it isn't, because the light's coming from the sun, but what's happening is it's hitting our atmosphere, and it's bouncing off our atmosphere and diffusing off our atmosphere. And so the majority of the light we're getting is bouncing off of the atmosphere. So it's kind of a diffused light. And so they have a system that's similar to that in here. So when you're going into this area right here, it says mental ray sun basic parameters. This is how bright the sun is. And the brighter the sun creates hard shadows. Now down here, you'll see mental ray sky parameters, and you'll have a multiplier here. This is how bright the sky is, and the sky casts soft shadows, okay? Now, usually when you're going to be doing something like this, we want to render really small until we get this down the way we want it. So I'm going to pick this really small setting, and then we'll render from there. Our window coming up here in a second. Okay, there it comes. And so we've got our sky out here, and then our light is coming into our room, okay, like so. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and clamp this back down. we're going to turn the exposure back to where it was at 15, because what I'm going to do is we're going to put some sky portals in here. Now, a sky portal in itself is not a light, but what it is a light amplifier. So we're going to come over here to the right side. And right now I'm just going to tell it to go ahead and hide our lights and cameras so we can get that out of our way. And I need to pick all this. Let's all pick everything and get rid of that darn grayed outline. Okay. So we're looking at it from the right side, and there's our windows over there. So what we're going to do is come in here and create, under lights, we're going to create a mental ray sky portal. And what we're going to do is to draw one that just fits inside of these windows right here. Okay. So we want it just inside of it. And then we're going to copy it, hold down the shift key, and we're going to copy and make one over here. Now we want this one as an instance because most likely whatever the intensity we would set one, we'd set for the other. And we need two of these because there's another one that needs to go right over there. Okay. So now if we go to the top, we need to pick these lights. And we need to slide them outside over here. And you'll see that they're pointing the wrong direction because that's the direction of the light. So if we just pick one of them, we just got to pick one, and we tell it to flip the light flux direction, and it'll flip it in. Now, these are echoes of each other, so I only have to adjust one, and it's going to adjust all of them, okay? So now this is going to grab the outside daylight system, and it's going to project it in here so it bounces around a lot more. And let's go ahead and kick this up to, say, maybe 10, and let's do a little render and see what we got going on in here. Okay, so now we're starting to get light bouncing around in here, and we just have to decide, how bright do we want it? Okay. Now you can make the sky portals brighter. We can make the sun brighter. We can make the sky brighter. I think what I'm going to do is come in here and go ahead and make these sky portals brighter, which is a nice soft light. Okay, and then on those sky portals, right here is the shadow sample. So in other words, the quality of the shadows. We're going to turn that up a little bit. And let's go back to our exposure control, and let's kick it down maybe to 13. Render our window here. And see what kind of lighting we're getting. Okay, so now you have to decide, are we lighting for daylight or lighting for nighttime? We can decide that a little bit later. And so let's go ahead, and I'm going to make one of these buttons 800 by 450 right here, and render this so we have a little bit bigger rendering, and you can kind of see what we got going on here right now. Now, other things that we can do is we can come in here and play with the color of the light. We can make it a little more blue. We can make it a little more warm. It's according to where the sun is in the sky. But we're going to get a really nice bounce lighting going on here, which happens in reality instead of just this directional kind of lights, which is what we've been doing with photometric lights. Now, I've still got the quality set to low, so it'll be kind of grainy. And I'm not using a lot of final gather. And I'm not using many bounces. Now, the bounces is that the light hits in here, it bounces around, you get more illumination. So when when you're doing architectural rendering, you want the final gather with maybe 2 or 3 bounces so that your light is really bouncing around and we're getting more of what would actually happen in a lighting situation as the light bounces around. Okay, I'm going to pause this for a second while this finishes rendering. Okay, now here's the piece once it's rendered out. Now, I did do another thing. One of the things that's kind of odd about this particular room, and I see them doing a lot with these files they're giving us, is that the rooms are like paper-thin walls, okay? We really don't want that. So what I did is I came back in and put a shell modifier on it to give all these walls some thickness because the light's going to bounce around different if these walls have thickness than when they're paper shells. And so I went did that and rendered it so we got some nice bouncing around. Okay, now, so that's okay for daylight. If we wanted to, though, if we want to give it more of a nighttime kind of feel, we could go ahead and torque this back down. So we're going to give it more of a night kind of feel. And then let's put some lights in here on these candles, okay? So let's go back to our photometric. We're going to put free lights in here. We want to probably do this from the top viewport. And I'm just going to put one light here. And let's go from the front and pull that up. Set it right there. And then let's make a copy of that one over here. I'm holding down the shift key as I move it. I want it to be an instance. That way we can control one and we control all of them. And so we'll do something like that. Okay, let's go back to our camera view. Now this time I'm going to switch back to our realistic because we can start getting some lighting from those to kind of understand what's going on. And so I'm going to pick those and we're going to turn shadows on, ray trace shadows. We've gone over all this stuff. I'm going to leave these kind of an orange light. I'm going to go for maybe 4200, so it's more of a warmer light because we're going to have this cool light coming in from here. And we want them, let's go for a sphere. Okay, and then I'm going to start kicking up the intensity. And we'll start seeing the light react to it a little bit in here. Let's kick this intensity up some. And then let's do a little test render here. So let's go in and let's go ahead and just dump everything. Let's do a region render. And let's just do a region render of, say, this area right here. And now you'll see we're getting a little bit of an orange light in that area. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So I think what I want to do is to go ahead and kick it up a little bit brighter. Now, a thing you can do here also is you can use this amplifier right here, okay? It's a little bit more, it's not as sensitive as this. So if I click this on, it's locking this in. And now I'm doing a percentage on top of that. And so it reacts much faster. Maybe we can go with something like that. Now, another thing that you can do on the daylight system. So let's go over here and pick our daylight system. Is a couple of things that we can do is we've got some coloration in here. We can alter this coloration. So if I want to, I can make it a little more bluer. So right here, as you go up with this, it gets redder and down is bluer. And you don't want too much. Let's go with, say, maybe 0.4. Okay. And do I have that backwards? Oh, that's right. So I'm sorry, not 0.4. It's minus 0.4. That's what I want. Minus 0.4. Down. And that'll give us a little bit more blue in here. Now, let's just do another kind of region render, and we can kind of see how we're giving kind of a blue tint to this. And then we're getting this warm light to playing off of it. And so that's going to look pretty nice. Now, another thing you can do is we can desaturate the blue a little bit. The blue may be a little bit strong, okay? So what we can do is you can also desaturate your color over here so the blue is not quite as dominant, okay? And I can already tell it's going to be pretty bright blue. And so what I'm going to do here is on your saturation, default is 1. And so if we bring this down, say to maybe 0.7, then the blue won't be quite as electric blue, okay? So tinting it, lowering the number adds more blue, adding more to the number adds it more to a red or orange kind of glow, like an Indian summer kind of light. And then you can deal with the saturation. Now, there's also, when we're dealing with this, there is a horizon line out there. You can barely see it right here, and we'll focus on that for a second. and we can lower the horizon line. Right now, the horizon line, you can see there's the edge of it, and maybe I want to get it down here. So over here, you have height, and as we lower this, it will lower the horizon line. So let's try a minus 0.2, and let's just do a small region render here to just look at that horizon line to get it where we want. Okay, you can see it's dropped down some, but I still want to drop it down quite a bit more. Let's go, say, 0.4. Okay, there it is. I want to get it down here. So maybe 6. A little bit, just want a little bit more. Matter of fact, I may leave that just like that's the ground out there. Okay, and that's the horizon, the height of the horizon right here. So you got sky and then ground out there. Okay, that's starting to look pretty good. So okay, I want to do one last thing, which is put some candles in here, okay? So what I'm going to do is, let's just go to the top view for a second. I'm going to go out here, and I'm just going to create a piece of geometry. So let's just create a cone, a little small cone. Go to the front view. And, okay, I need the radius at the top smaller. We don't need it quite that tall. Something about like that. Okay. And we're going to do like there's a little flame in here. So we're going to change this height down a little bit. We don't need that radius quite as bit. That's not too bad. And then if we go ahead and put a mesh smooth on this and smooth it a couple of times, it'll kind of round out. And so we're going to have a little candle light here. Okay. And let's go to the top. Let's go ahead and unshade this so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to put a candle tip right there. So we'll just call this flame. And then we'll hold on to shift and put another one over here as an instance. And then let's hold down to shift. Oops. My flame. Shift. Make another instance to put over there. And then another one to put over here. Okay, now I'm going to pick all of those flames. And then I'm going to put a material on this. And so what we're going to do is bring up the material editor, and I'm going to get another arch in design, and this is going to be called flame. And then I'm going to apply that to those. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here under self-illumination, and I'm going to turn this on, and now those will be white. So we go back to our camera. And let's do a little region render over this area right here and see what we get. Okay, so what we're doing is we're kind of using some mood lighting here. So we're getting, a nice blue light coming in from the sun as it's going down, kind of a moonlight coming in, and then we're using some warm lights on the inside. We're not really coloring the lights in the sense of putting color gels on them. What we're doing is still using natural light. By using Kelvin, that is a color of light that any light bulb could actually do. Okay, so we're staying in the realm. We're still creating mood and we're coloring our lights, but we're creating them in such a way that we are making a natural kind of scene. Okay. Okay, at that point, let's go ahead and do a render of this and look at it. So I'm going to pause it while I do a render for us to look at what we got. Okay, I'm going to pause this. Okay, so here's what it looks like once I've rendered it. And so you can see, nice room. Looks pretty good. And next thing I want to do is show you a couple little things that we can enhance this with. This looks pretty nice, but we're going to do some enhancements. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just copy this. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to paste it into Photoshop. And we'll come back to that. So we've got this rendered. Now, another thing I want to do now is I want to put a little bit of a glow on these. Okay, so what we're now is we have lighting in a room, but we want to do a volumetric light, kind of a glow in here. And I just want to do a glow pass. I don't want to bake my glow into this rendering. I want it to be a separate rendering. So what I'm going to do is to come in here and just pick the flames themselves. So let's pick our flames. And let's just hide everything else. Unselected. There we go. So we just have the flames in here. And then I want to make sure in my environment that I have black in the background, and I want to turn off my physical sky because that'll make it blue back here. And what I really wanted is black back here. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is come in here and do a render setup, and then I'm going to pick my rendering tab. And on your rendering tab, I'm pulled down here to an area that says camera effects. And right here, we've got what's called a glare shader. And it's a camera shader, and we want to put it on our output. And what this does is creates a glow in our scene. Okay, so we're going to put that on here, and then we're going to render. Now, I'm rendering this with a black background so that we don't get any kind of a, because we want to overlay this in Photoshop. So you'll see it's a, effect that is put on a nice glow like this. And so then I'm just going to copy this. And then I'm going to take that into Photoshop, and I'm going to paste it on here as well, okay? And then we're going to come back to that in a second. So this is a little glow pass that we can put in here. It's a special effect. I could have rendered it into the scene, but I like to do it as a separate pass so that I can lay it on top and adjust it, which is one of the other things we're going to be talking about later in the week is how to do some post-processing. I'm going to do a little bit in this right now. Okay, so I've got that done. So now I want to turn that back off. I don't need it anymore. And then I want to unhide everything. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to do a pass for an ambient occlusion pass. So in my render setup, I want to come in here and enable material override. And then I need to create an ambient occlusion material. I've already created one here. This is a mental ray material with an ambient occlusion node in it. And then I'm setting it up to go out about 3 feet. I don't want it to go too far out. 3 feet's about as far as I need. I want it to be fairly smooth, so I've moved it higher from 16 samples to 64, so it's going to be smoother. Now, the other thing I want to do is in my environment, I don't want to render it. This will render with black in the background, which most of it's hidden, but it'll show through these windows as black, and I really want it to show through the windows as white. So we're going to change this to white so we don't have any black showing through our windows there. And then this should be set up and we should be able to render. Why are we not getting it? So let's see here. What do I not have on? So I've got my exposure. Oh, you got to turn your exposure control off. Exposure control off. And okay, it's all white because I know what it is. I've unhid everything, which means my front wall is hidden and we're behind it, so I need to turn that off, and now I should be able to get a rendering in here. So you got to have your exposure control off when you're rendering an ambient occlusion pass, and then you turn it back on afterwards. So it's something that people forget all the time. So now this will give me my soft shadows and shadows into those small little corners, which are going to get kind of baked out in my normal rendering. We'll be able to put it back in. Okay, so there that is. So we're going to copy that, and now we're going to go back into Photoshop, and we're going to paste that on. Okay, so this is all the stuff I need to do my post-production. So the first thing I'm going to do, this is my original render, is I'm going to come in and I'm going to duplicate this layer. I want to keep our original. And now what I'm going to do is to come into this piece, get this off to the side, and I'm going to do an auto contrast on this. Okay, look at the difference when I do this auto contrast. It's like we have this haze over it. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I think it's a little too saturated, so I'm going to duplicate that so I can always come back. And I'm going to adjust my saturation a little bit. It just brings the saturation down a little bit. It's a little too blue. So I'm taking it from there to there, just taking it down a little bit. Okay, so now I've got this lighting over the top, and I'm going to actually put this on here twice. Okay, so I'm going to put this lighting on here twice. I've got two layers of it. The first one I'm going to want on a lighten, okay, so that it's just doing something like that right there, okay. And then this one I'm going to do on, let's see, I want this one on a screen, okay, so this one's on screen, okay. Now I'm going to turn it down a little bit. It's a little too strong, maybe something like that. And then there's the one on lighten. It's a little strong too. Adding a little bit extra glow on there. So if I group these two together, put them in their own group, then I can kind of turn those on and off. You'll see how we're enhancing that. And then I want to put this ambient occlusion on. Now that's going to need to be on a multiply, and I probably don't want it 100, maybe about 80%. And really this needs to go underneath those lights. So we're going to put it right there. So that's our ambient occlusion, which is adding our little dark shadows in there. So I'm going to go ahead and group this all together so you can see what it was before and after. So that's the rendering out of Max. That's the final rendering I have. You can see quite a bit of difference in there between that render and when we're doing a little bit of post-production on it. Okay, nice, moody environment, and that's what we should shoot for.